After carrying the entire team, I watched the promotion go to my boss's son who couldn't read a production schedule. I resigned quietly. Within days, contracts started dropping. My boss ran around the floor, panicking, yelling, "Where is he?" Right as the board demanded a full explanation. Hey, Reddit. I kept a whole plant running while my boss and her clueless son took credit. One day I finally walked out, and everything exploded. Here's how it started. Name's Hervey, 37, Senior Supply Chain and Production Flow Coordinator at Forge River Industrial Manufacturing. Fancy wording for one simple reality. When something in the plant blew up, figuratively, sometimes almost literally, I was the guy everyone sprinted to. I didn't plan on working in manufacturing. I fell into it, got good at solving problems under pressure, and before I knew it, I became the guy people depended on way more than my paycheck reflected. Forge River was a mess held together by duct tape, stubbornness, and me. Machines were old enough to qualify for retirement benefits. Software froze every other hour. Suppliers acted shocked when asked to deliver the correct materials on time. If a production line stalled, I fixed it. If a pallet disappeared, I tracked it down. If receiving mixed up inventory again, I sorted it before a supervisor lost their mind. When new hires panicked because they couldn't tell a work order from a packing slip, guess who trained them? Everyone leaned on me. Warehouse leads, production managers, procurement, shipping, they all treated me like some kind of emergency tool. If Hervey's here, we'll be fine, they'd say. Translation, dump the mess on him so I don't have to deal with it. Meanwhile, my personal life wasn't exactly a vacation. Shared custody of my son meant juggling schedules, school runs, and trying to be a decent dad while Forge River constantly set things on fire. I'd finally sit down with him, and my phone would buzz about a machine breaking down or a supplier sending the wrong steel grade. I didn't remember the last time I had a weekend without a quick question from someone who couldn't figure out a spreadsheet. And then there was Thea, our regional director. She had this way of acting like she respected me while treating me like part of the equipment. Useful, replaceable, and expected to run nonstop. In meetings, she'd cut me off mid-sentence and rephrase my entire point like she just invented the concept. If a vendor complimented me, she'd step right in and twist it into praise for her leadership. She talked a lot about team success, but her version of teamwork was me solving problems while she took the credit. Her son Evan, on the other hand, was something else entirely. He walked around the plant like he was allergic to work, but addicted to being admired. Never worked a real shift, never handled production flow, never stepped onto the floor without acting like the noise bothered him. He'd point at equipment and ask questions that made it obvious he had no idea what anything did. He once told a forklift driver he should optimize his maneuvering strategy. The guy laughed for 10 minutes straight, but Thea treated him like he was destined for greatness. Every failure was excused. Every complaint about him misunderstanding basic manufacturing terms was dismissed. She paraded him around the plant like the place existed for him to practice pretending to be important. About 4 months before everything went sideways, Thea started hinting at a leadership position opening soon. A big one. Suddenly she was telling me things like, "We need someone dependable, and you've been carrying half of operations already, and you're exactly the type who should be stepping up." She'd look right at me when she said these things, almost like she finally noticed I existed beyond fixing her son's mistakes. And yeah, I'll admit it, I believed her. Not because I'm gullible, but because it made sense. I handled crises, kept production flowing, dealt with suppliers, trained staff, ran numbers, rerouted schedules, and basically held the entire plant together while everyone else ran to me the second something broke. If anyone earned a step up, it was me. But my gut kept tapping my shoulder. Something felt off, mostly because every time Thea praised my dependability, Evan would magically show up out of nowhere, listening in like he was studying how to mimic my job in bullet points. I ignored it, because that's what you do when you're exhausted and desperate for things to finally go right. Looking back, I should have known better. The signs were there. Thea's praise always came with a weird smile. Evan kept lurking more, and everyone else in the building acted like they knew something I didn't. But at the time, I thought maybe, finally, I'd get rewarded for being the guy who kept everything running. I didn't realize I was walking straight into the dumbest week of my life. The morning of the announcement felt different. People were acting strange, but in a supportive way. A few production leads nodded at me like they already knew what the meeting was about. Someone in receiving said, "Big day for you, man." Another guy on the floor gave me a thumbs up. Even the warehouse supervisor, who normally spoke in grunts, muttered, "'Bout time." I didn't feed into it, but I won't lie. Walking through the plant felt lighter than usual. For once, it didn't seem like I was heading into a day full of deadlines and headaches. The meeting was in the upstairs conference room. Everyone squeezed in, still wearing high-vis vests and steel-toe boots. The room smelled like machine oil and burnt coffee, which was standard Forge River atmosphere. Thea stood in front of everyone with her posture extra dramatic, like she practiced it in the mirror. Evan hovered beside her with that smug smile he always wore when attention was in the room. Thea cleared her throat. Thank you all for coming. Today marks a new direction for Forge River Industrial Manufacturing. I noticed the way she kept glancing at Evan, like the speech was really about him, and the rest of us were the audience in his personal talent show. She talked about restructuring, innovation, and fresh leadership energy. Half the room looked confused. The forklift operator next to me whispered, "Why does she sound like she's announcing a movie premiere?" After dragging it out, she finally said, "Please join me in congratulating our new regional operations lead, Evan Quinn." Silence hit first. Then a few claps. Not real applause, just the awkward, forced kind people give when they feel trapped in a social situation. Some faces dropped. Some people stared at me with those pity eyes that feel like a punch. A few employees exchanged looks as if confirming they weren't hallucinating. Evan stepped forward like he'd just won an award for saving humanity. "Thanks, everyone," he said. "I'm excited to revolutionize production flow and integrate advanced methodologies into our daily processes." The guy couldn't even define half the words he used. I kept my face blank, but inside I was already reevaluating every conversation I'd had with Thea for the last 4 months. He went on about streamlining operational pipelines and introducing progressive alignment strategies. None of it meant anything. One of the maintenance guys mouthed, "What the hell is he talking about?" Another rolled his eyes. When the meeting ended, people shuffled out, whispering, confused, irritated, or pretending not to care. I got a few shoulder pats from coworkers who didn't know what to say. Some gave me that "hang in there" look, which somehow felt worse. Evan intercepted me near the doorway. "Hey, man," he said, leaning in like we were buddies. "I'm gonna need you to babysit operations until I adjust to the role. Mom says you're like the stability guy." I stared at him. "Babysit?" He nodded enthusiastically. "Yeah, you know, cover the details until I can zoom out and do the big picture stuff." Big picture? His big picture was whatever buzzword he heard that morning. But I didn't bother arguing. There was no point. Thea suddenly appeared next to him. "Hervey, we're counting on your support during this transition," she said loudly, making sure the nearby staff heard. "Evan has a visionary approach. You'll help anchor his ideas." Visionary. Right. The guy once confused coolant levels with inventory counts. I went back to my desk hoping to bury myself in actual work, but Thea's assistant popped in 10 minutes later. "Thea wants you in the conference room for the transition session." I followed her back, walked in, and saw Evan already at the front with a whiteboard. He had drawn a bunch of circles and arrows, like a child trying to design a theme park. "Okay, Hervey," he said confidently. "This is how I want to restructure production flow." He started explaining his chart. It didn't match how manufacturing worked in the real world. He had materials coming in before procurement approved them, machines running without changeover scheduling, and shipping loaded before anything was built. It looked like he planned the whole operation using a toy model. I tried correcting one part of it. "That can't work. You're skipping half the process." Thea cut me off instantly. "Let Evan finish." I tried again a few minutes later when he recommended bypassing quality checks to speed output. I said, "That'll get us shut down." Thea didn't even look at me. "Hervey, you're focusing on minutia. Evan is focusing on strategy." Minutia. Quality control, safety, compliance. Sure. Just tiny little details that keep us from getting sued or blowing up a machine. Evan finished his lecture like a proud professor, then snapped a picture of the whiteboard. Later that afternoon, someone in the break room showed me his online post. "Honored to take over operations. Big changes coming. Some people fear innovation, but that won't stop me." Fear innovation? The guy didn't know the difference between raw material codes. By the end of the day, the truth was obvious. This had never been about skill, work ethic, or merit. It was about Thea grooming her son for a position he couldn't survive in. And the worst part? They expected me to hold him up while he pretended to lead. That was the moment the switch flipped in my head. The job, the promises, the praise, it was never real. And I finally realized exactly where I stood. Evan's first official day in his new leadership role turned into a cleanup shift for me. Halfway through the morning, he approved a material swap without checking specs. That single decision stalled 2 production lines, confused 3 departments, and triggered a supplier argument that somehow landed on my phone. I spent the rest of the day undoing everything he touched. By the time most of the building cleared out, I was still at my desk sorting through the mess. I didn't mind staying late. I minded staying late because a grown man with a job title he didn't earn couldn't understand that steel thickness isn't a creative preference. Around 8:30, I finally got up to refill my water. The plant was quiet, just humming machines and the faint echo of forklifts in the distance. As I walked past the offices, I noticed Thea's door slightly open, light spilling into the hallway. Normally, she shut her door so tightly you'd think she was hiding state secrets, but tonight it was cracked. That alone was weird. The board wasn't supposed to be on site again until next month, unless the client complaints from earlier had pushed someone to show up early. I wasn't planning to stop. Then I heard my name. Hervey is not leadership material, Thea snapped. Her voice had that sharp tone she used when she forgot to pretend she was professional. He's good for grunt labor, nothing more. I froze. Not because I was shocked, just because hearing it out loud hits different. The person she was talking to responded calmly. One of the board guys I'd seen during quarterly walkthroughs. Always polite, always asking the kind of questions Thea hated. He's been running half your plant for years. The team relies on him. You said yourself She cut him off. He's reliable at manual work, not strategic thinking. Manual work. That's what she called years of keeping her plant alive. She continued, irritated. Besides, Evan needs this. He struggled after those internships that didn't pan out. He needs a win on his resume. Internships that didn't pan out. Interesting way to say fired for incompetence, which everyone already suspected. The board member sighed. We're already getting concerns from 2 clients about the delays today. They're blaming Evan's decisions. Thea brushed it off instantly. They'll calm down. The team can carry Evan while he adjusts. Is carry him? He wasn't adjusting. He was drowning. I should have walked away, but I stayed where I was, listening because I needed to know how deep this went. Thea lowered her voice. And Hervey won't complain. He can't. He's got a kid, bills, responsibilities. He's not going anywhere. That one hit harder than the rest. She wasn't just overlooking me. She was counting on my life being stressful enough that I'd stay quiet. Then I heard another voice join them. Evan. Mom, did you talk to him yet? He didn't seem excited to help earlier. Hervey doesn't get excited, she said. He just works. That's why he's useful. Useful. Like a wrench. Evan chuckled. He should be grateful he even has a job. Some guys would kill for my position. The board member sounded annoyed. You need to understand the responsibility that comes with... Evan cut him off. The responsibility is temporary. I'm not staying in this dump forever. I just need this title so I can move on to something real. Something real. The irony almost made me laugh. He continued, bragging. Once the resume looks good, I'm gone. This place is depressing. The noise, the dirt. Who chooses to work here long term? Thea softened her tone, like she was soothing a child. Evan, honey, focus on the short term. This is just a stepping stone. The hard part is making sure the board sees you as a strong leader. And that's why the staff needs to fall in line, Evan said. Staff, meaning me. The board member sounded uneasy. There's only so much cover I can provide. If client complaints continue, the team will adapt, Thea snapped. They always do, especially Hervey. He always cleans up the mess. That was all I needed to hear. I stepped back quietly and headed toward my office. On my desk was the stack of documentation from earlier, the process sheets I built myself years ago. I skimmed through one and noticed something new in the digital version. Evan's name listed under System Review and Optimization. He'd been credited for work he didn't even know existed. My stomach tightened, not from emotion, just clarity. I opened a few more files. Same thing, my work, his name. As I was closing my laptop, one of the production leads, Marlon, poked his head into my office. Hey man, he said quietly. You didn't hear it from me, but Thea's planning changes. Word is she wants to shift you into a support role under Evan. Quietly. No raise, just less authority. I didn't look surprised. Marlon frowned. You already knew? Pieces of it, I said. He nodded, like someone delivering bad news to a guy who already lost too much. Just watch your back. He walked off, leaving me alone in the dim office with all the evidence I needed. Every hint Thea had dropped, every fake compliment, every little nudge toward the future role. It all clicked. She never intended to promote me. She never respected me. She needed me to carry her son while she built his image. But the part that bothered me most wasn't the betrayal. It was how casually she talked about my life, my kid, my bills, my responsibilities, as tools she could leverage. That was the moment something inside me settled. I wasn't helping Thea and Evan anymore. I was done. I walked into the plant the next morning calmer than I'd felt in years. No anger, no second thoughts, just clarity. The place looked the same. Buzzing forklifts, metal clanging, workers moving fast. But it didn't hit me the way it used to. Whatever weight I'd carried for Forge River wasn't on my shoulders anymore. I went straight to my desk, opened a blank document, and typed a resignation letter in 3 short sentences. No dramatic paragraphs, no explanations, just, I resign. My last day will be 2 weeks from today. Thank you for the opportunity. Printed it, folded it, slipped it into an envelope, and headed to Thea's office. She was standing behind her desk when I walked in, rearranging papers like she was preparing for another speech about innovation. Without saying a word, I placed the envelope in front of her. She frowned, opened it, and her face snapped tight instantly. "What is this supposed to be?" she demanded. "My notice," I said. Her reaction hit every stage of panic in under 10 seconds. "You're joking. This isn't funny." "Not joking." She slammed the paper down. "You can't leave now, Hervey. We're restructuring. There are expectations. You're a key part of this transition." "I'm not part of anything anymore." Her breathing got louder. "You're being irrational. Think of your son. Think of your responsibilities. You need stability. That's exactly why I'm leaving." She stared at me like she couldn't process the idea of someone choosing not to serve her agenda. "You won't find a better job in this region," she snapped. I shrugged. "I'll manage." Her tone flipped instantly to bargaining. "Look, maybe I pushed you hard this week. That's leadership pressure, nothing personal. Stay loyal, and when things settle, there'll be room for growth." Growth. She couldn't even lie convincingly. Before I could respond, Evan barged in holding a stack of reports upside down. "Mom, these documents make 0 sense. I think someone formatted them wrong." Thea hissed. "Not now. We're in the middle of something." Evan ignored her and turned to me. "Did you make these?" "None of the words match the chart labels. It's confusing." "They're labeled correctly," I said. "You just don't know what you're looking at." He scoffed. "Wow, real professional. No wonder things fall apart here." Thea spun toward him. "Evan, stop talking. Please." I almost laughed. The timing couldn't have been better. When she turned back to me, her mask was cracking. "Hervey, this is irresponsible. You're abandoning the team right when they need you." "They don't need me," I said. "You made that clear." Her voice sharpened. "Don't twist my words. You're being ungrateful. After everything I've done for you?" "You took credit for my work," I said. "That's what you did." A muscle in her cheek twitched. "You think you can just walk out? You're critical staff. Legally, HR can require longer notice. That's not how the law works." She didn't like that answer. She grabbed her phone and called HR on speaker. "We have a situation," she announced. "Hervey is attempting to resign prematurely. He's essential to daily operations. There must be a policy against this." The HR manager sounded tired already. "We can't force him to stay, Thea." "He's critical staff," she repeated, like yelling the word would change reality. "Still not enforceable," HR replied. "He has the right to leave after his notice." Thea hung up so hard the phone bounced. She glared at me. "You're making a huge mistake." "Maybe," I said, "but it's mine to make." Evan crossed his arms. "So what? You're quitting because you couldn't handle real leadership? People already think that." There it was. The lie he was going to spread. I wasn't even surprised. I looked him dead in the eyes. "Say whatever helps you sleep." His jaw tightened. He didn't like that I wasn't arguing. Words spread through the office faster than a fire alarm. I heard someone down the hall say, "He's leaving?" Another whispered, "No wonder things have been weird." And somewhere else, "Thea must be losing her mind." She was. As I walked out of her office, she followed a few steps behind me, still trying to throw words at my back. "You'll regret this. You're walking away from security. Companies don't want quitters." I didn't turn around, didn't respond, didn't feed her tantrum. I passed the production floor, where a few supervisors gave me looks like they already knew something big had happened. I kept walking, feeling the air shift around me, like Forge River finally realized it didn't own me. When I stepped outside, the noise of the plant faded behind me, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I wasn't carrying a burning building on my back. They wanted me trapped. Instead, I walked away. Once word got around that I'd put in my notice, something in the building shifted. People didn't say anything outright, but you could see it in their faces. Some looked relieved for me. Some looked nervous. Others avoided eye contact like being near me might pull them into the fallout. I still had 2 weeks left on the clock, which meant I got to watch the place start wobbling in real time. The only person acting like he just won a championship was Evan. He walked around the plant with that inflated confidence he hadn't earned, acting as if my leaving cleared the runway for him. His first week in charge was a disaster in slow motion. Early Monday morning, Evan decided to fix morale by rewriting the schedule. No warning, no supervisor input, and most importantly, no respect for the union rules posted right on the wall. He shifted start times, shortened breaks, and reassigned 2 senior workers to nights like he was moving chess pieces. By lunch, the warehouse crew was in HR as a group. Not angry, cold. The kind of quiet that means they're already discussing a walkout. That was the theme of his leadership. Random decisions dressed up as strategy. His calls with suppliers were even worse. Instead of confirming delivery timelines or checking specs, he rambled about modernizing the supply chain mindset. One vendor called me afterward asking, "Is your new ops lead doing a school project?" Another said he sounded like he'd memorized buzzwords off a poster. By Tuesday afternoon, Thea was already cracking. I heard her yelling at staff for things that weren't even problems. She blamed receiving for being too slow, blamed maintenance for delaying progress, and blamed procurement for not anticipating Evan's needs. Meanwhile, Evan walked around smiling, like a man who thought chaos meant he was making moves. Midweek, he tried it again. Same idea, same arrogance, just with HR already warning him. This time, the warehouse crew didn't just complain. They filed formal grievances and told HR, flat out, "Next change without approval, we walk." HR tried to smooth it over, but Evan told them the workers needed discipline. If he had any sense, he would have realized he just threatened the most crucial team in the building. That same day, a major piece of equipment sat unused for hours because Evan ignored the maintenance logs that flagged it for inspection. The machine went down during the morning run, and instead of pulling the maintenance team in, he told them it should be fine to run as is. It wasn't. When it finally broke completely, Thea didn't blame him. She blamed maintenance for not communicating clearly. I stepped in only because the maintenance crew didn't deserve to be blamed for Evan's stupidity. I helped them organize a workaround to get the schedule back on track. Not for Thea, not for Evan. Just for the people doing actual work. Another mess hit by the end of the week. A vendor sent a warning email saying Forge River would face penalties for repeated missed deadlines. Turned out Evan had promised accelerated production output without checking plant capacity. Orders went out late 3 days in a row. The vendor said, "We're escalating this if leadership keeps ignoring contract terms." Thea's response? Vendors exaggerate. They always come back. She acted like losing a contract was a mild inconvenience. The next Monday, a supervisor named Carter, one of the best in the plant, quit in the middle of his shift. He handed in his badge, looked Thea dead in the eye, and said, "I'm not carrying this circus." Then he walked out. No hesitation, no drawn-out explanation. Everyone froze when they heard. If a guy like Carter was done, nobody was safe. By the end of my second week, Thea's desperation was almost pathetic. She cornered me near the loading dock, her voice low and shaky. "Hervey, listen, we can fix this. Stay a little longer and I'll get you the promotion you deserve. Real authority, real compensation." "You can't deliver that," I said. She stepped closer. "I can. I promise. You promised before." Her mouth tightened. "Leaving now will hurt your reputation." I didn't even bother responding. She knew she'd lost. That day, Evan tried to rewrite the story too. I heard him telling HR. He quit because he couldn't handle real leadership. Some people just aren't built for higher-level work. HR didn't argue. They just looked exhausted. On my final day, I came in early, cleaned my desk, and wrapped up anything that would affect the guys who actually cared about their jobs. I kept it professional. No fireworks, no dramatic speeches. Only a few coworkers stopped by, shaking my hand or thanking me quietly. I didn't go near Thea's office. She didn't come near mine. Maybe she finally realized the situation was out of her control. At quitting time, I grabbed my bag and walked through the plant one last time. Machines running, forklifts moving, workers talking softly. The same place I'd kept alive for years, but it didn't pull on me anymore. I pushed the door open, stepped outside, and didn't look back. If Forge River wanted to crumble, it could do it without me. Starting my new job felt surreal in the best way. Clean building, newer equipment, adults acting like adults. The pay was better, the title was real, and nobody treated competence like a free public service. My new manager shook my hand on day one and said, "You've been underused for a long time." The weirdest part was what didn't happen. No late-night quick questions, no panic calls, no constant feeling that I was babysitting a burning system. I could go home, make dinner, and actually be present. It took about 3 days before the old place started calling. First one came from Marlon. "You didn't hear this from me," he said, "but Forge River just lost 2 contracts. Clients don't want to work under Evan." I leaned back in my chair. Already? Man, everything's falling apart. Orders backed up, production stalling, and that kid? You won't believe the decisions he's making. I believed it. I'd watched enough of his leadership to know disaster wasn't optional. The next day, another coworker called. "The union's pissed," he said. "They're threatening a walkout. Evan changed scheduling again without approval." I rubbed my forehead. Didn't HR warn him? Warned him, begged him, practically wrote him a script? He still ignored it. By the end of that week, it wasn't just calls, it was screenshots. One coworker sent me a picture of pallets stacked in the wrong order, blocking an entire forklift path. Then came a message. Line 3 shut down, again. Mismanaged orders had triggered a chain reaction of production halts. One bad decision turned into 5. Orders delayed turned into contracts questioning penalties. Forge River was spiraling exactly the way I knew it would. But the real entertainment came from outside the building. Someone forwarded me a viral LinkedIn post from one of Forge River's biggest clients. The post didn't mention names, but it didn't have to. It said, "When companies reward entitlement instead of competence, operations collapse. Our supplier must address their leadership crisis before we resume business." The comment section was brutal. People sharing stories about nepotism tanking companies. Someone from another plant wrote, "Is this about Forge River? Yikes." I wasn't celebrating, but I also wasn't surprised. Then came the call from a friend in HR. "You're not going to believe this," she whispered. "Evan had a meltdown today." What happened? He exploded in the middle of the floor. Started yelling at staff because a shipment wasn't labeled the way he wanted. People froze. Someone recorded the whole thing. He kept shouting about how no one respects him, how they refuse to follow his vision. The plant manager had to pull him away before he embarrassed himself more. I could picture it perfectly. Evan screaming at people who actually understood the job, convinced that volume equals authority. Not even 24 hours later, another coworker texted me, "Thea's losing it." Apparently, she'd fired a longtime employee, a calm, reliable woman from procurement, claiming the woman was undermining leadership. In reality, the woman had simply told Evan she couldn't process his imaginary priority shipment because it didn't exist in the system. The firing backfired instantly. Half the department filed complaints. HR got involved. Even the board started asking questions. When Thea was asked why she fired a respected employee without documentation, she blamed emotional instability. No one bought it. Forge River wasn't just unstable anymore. It was leaking from every direction. A week later, an industry-wide article dropped. Big publication. Big headline. Regional manufacturer faces internal collapse amid nepotism, leadership failures. And it wasn't like this came out of nowhere. That client's LinkedIn post got shared around our little corner of the industry, and once people start talking, reporters start asking questions. Forge River had already been racking up late shipments and angry emails for months. Now it had a spotlight. I skimmed it during lunch. The details were ruthless. Anonymous employees described inexperienced leadership, chronic mismanagement, and the sudden loss of key operational talent. They didn't name me, but lines like, "The departure of a veteran coordinator exposed serious structural weaknesses," made it clear. The article quoted 2 former clients. One said they no longer trusted Forge River's executive team. Another said they were transitioning partnerships due to unstable oversight. The piece ended with, "Sources confirm the board is reviewing leadership decisions made by Regional Director Thea Quinn." 5 minutes after reading that, my phone buzzed again. "They removed her," the message said. "Board voted this morning. She's been stripped of authority and pulled from the facility." I stared at the screen for a moment. The woman who always talked about power, authority, and control left the building with none of it. Just like that. Later that afternoon, another text came in. Evan had a full meltdown and got pulled off the floor. After that, he started telling anyone who'd listen that the environment was toxic and beneath his skill level. That part didn't surprise me. Evan couldn't survive in a place where competence mattered. My new company forwarded me a couple inbound inquiries from former Forge River clients. They weren't asking for miracles. They were asking for the one thing they'd had before, me on the chain. Most of those clients didn't even know Thea's name. They knew mine, because I'd been the one answering the panicked calls, rerouting shipments, and keeping their orders from going off a cliff. They specifically requested to work with me. One message read, "We heard Hervey joined your team. If he's involved, we'd like to discuss a long-term partnership." I hadn't sought revenge. I hadn't said a single word publicly. I just walked away and let Forge River operate under the leadership it chose. Turns out, the truth didn't need my help. It surfaced all on its own. A few months after Forge River blew up, my new company sent me to a regional manufacturing conference. It was the first event I'd attended under the new job, and everything about it felt different. Organized, calm, professional. My team had a booth, and we spent the morning talking to vendors, checking out new equipment, and comparing notes on production trends. Near the afternoon break, I stepped away to grab a coffee from one of the catering tables. While waiting in line, I noticed someone standing alone near the back wall. His posture was tense, suit wrinkled like it had been slept in, hair a mess. When he turned slightly, I recognized him. Evan. He spotted me a second later. His expression flickered between embarrassment and relief before he walked over. "Hervey," he said quietly. "Can we talk?" I nodded. He stepped aside with me near an empty corner of the room. "I'm sorry," he said, "for how I acted, for everything. I didn't know what I was doing. I shouldn't have treated you the way I did." He glanced down at the floor, then back up. "I'm working at a small plant now. Nothing like Forge River, just trying to start over." I gave a single nod. He didn't try dragging the conversation out. He thanked me again and walked off, shoulders still tense but lighter than when he approached. I headed back to my booth. Nothing about the interaction needed a follow-up. Over the next few hours, I met potential suppliers, toured demo equipment setups, and sat in on 2 breakout sessions with my team. My phone buzzed intermittently with messages, most from former coworkers still updating me on Forge River's decline, even though the worst had already passed. One message read, "Forge River facility officially cut to half production. Multiple clients gone." Another said, "Board terminated Thea last week. Security escorted her out." And then another from Marlon. "Evan finally resigned months later. No notice. Just left his badge on the desk and disappeared." Even months later, Forge River was still unraveling. Contracts they thought were secured for years were canceled one after another. A few vendors stopped responding entirely after repeated miscommunication. The warehouse crew filed formal grievances that turned into a labor investigation. 3 department heads left within 2 weeks of each other. During lunch, my new manager handed me a printed inquiry from a former Forge River client. "They specifically mentioned you," he said. "Asked if you were overseeing any of our programs." Later that same day, another email came in from a different client who'd walked away from Forge River. "We'd like to discuss transitioning our orders to your plant. We hear good things about your coordination work." And then another, "We worked with you previously. Are you available for a consultation?" My schedule filled quickly after that. Calls, meetings, plant tours. Clients who'd once been tied to Forge River now wanted partnerships through us, and they requested me by name. Meanwhile, updates from inside Forge River kept coming. One message read, "Production floor almost shut down. Mismanaged orders stacked past deadline." Another, "Union demanded full review of leadership conduct. Plant barely avoided full walkout." Someone else sent, "Thea fired a procurement manager trying to save face. Board called it reckless behavior." That's what finally pushed the board to move against her. And weeks later, half the office is empty now, people transferring out or quitting. Every new update made the picture clearer. Forge River wasn't bouncing back. Not with the leadership model they'd built, and not with the reputation they destroyed. While Forge River was scrambling, I was busy onboarding 2 new clients, both of them former Forge River contracts. They came in with full project scopes, scheduled visits to our facility, and immediately began transferring orders. My new team handled the transition smoothly, and the clients commented repeatedly on how organized everything felt compared to what they'd dealt with before. The following month, I attended a cross-company strategy review where my manager highlighted the incoming partnerships. During the meeting, he said, "These accounts shifted over because they trust the coordination on our side." Great work, Hervey. The team nodded, noted details, and moved forward. No exaggeration, no theatrics, just acknowledgement and action. More inquiries followed, some from mid-sized companies, some from larger ones. A few requested full tours of our facility. One even asked if I could help restructure part of their production flow as a consultant. Back on Forge River's side, things continued falling apart. A former coworker sent a final update. 2 more clients pulled out. Plant is running at maybe 30%. Rumor is they're bringing in outside auditors. Another message followed. "Remember that big vendor? They filed a formal complaint. Board is replacing half the directors." And lastly, Forge River leadership trying to recruit again, but no one in the industry wants the roles. The situation had reached a point where even rumors couldn't hide how badly things were crumbling. Weeks turned into months, and the pattern held. My new job expanded. my responsibilities grew. Not because anyone dumped work on me, but because new opportunities kept showing up. My schedule became structured. No surprise emergencies, no sudden late night demands, no frantic cleanup of someone else's bad decisions. I picked up my son after work more often. We got dinner without interruptions. I showed up at his school events without checking my phone every few minutes. I went home with energy instead of exhaustion. Events stacked in a clear line. Forge River fell. Its clients left. Its leadership collapsed. Its reputation folded. And the people they underestimated, the ones doing the real work, became the ones the industry sought out. The last email I saved from that period came from a former Forge River partner. It said, "We followed your work for years. We'd like to build a long-term relationship with your current company. Let us know when you're available to discuss." No emotion attached. No reflection needed. It was just the final marker showing exactly how everything played out. Life had reset into something steady, structured, and functional. Not perfect, but mine. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel and help us bring you more and better stories. Thanks.